real quick on the Slay one, because this just reminded me. Have I told you guys my Manny story after that game? Okay, so I was back home and watched the game, and it was super depressing. And I think it was the next day, my family went to Manny's. We had a gift card, so it was the first time I had ever been. But obviously, that's the steakhouse that all the Minnesota athletes go to, and that's where they wine and dine people when they're trying to get free agents. And we were talking to the waiter after a couple scotches, and we were like, "Come on, like who's been in here recently? Like, give us the celebrities you've waited on." And he rattled off a couple names. He's like, Sam Bradford comes in here. He's like, Sam Bradford actually had a reservation yesterday, the day of the game, but after the game, he called in and said, "Actually, I'll take that to go."
Oh man,
because he didn't want to be. He didn't want to be out.
Great. That's great intel right there.
I thought you were going to say like he just didn't show up, and then I had this picture in my head of like Bradford sitting alone in the corner of the McDonald's, just like
exactly.
with Teddy Bridgewater across the street and Fran getting a ton of attention from a bunch of crazy fans.
Yeah. Right.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 20 of the VT Roundtable. I'm joined, as usual, by some of my favorite guys who just happen to be, as you guys know, some of the greatest Vikings minds out there. Sam Neumann is back from a little extended hiatus that he had in Europe. You got any like cool stories to tell us? Did you get kidnapped at a hostel or something? Or
no, the hostels were actually fine. Our train from Florence to Rome was held up at gunpoint and robbed. It was about a 7-hour ordeal, but don't worry, my family and I are all safe. A little lighter in the pocket, but we made it out alive.
Yeah, that's not a joke. That's real.
That's what happened, man. Check the news. BBC, Reuters.
Oh my gosh.
No, that's a lie. It was a great trip. Thanks.
Well, you never know, man. It's crazy over there right now. It's crazy everywhere right now. We're glad you're back safe. Glad to have you back again tonight. So tonight is going to be a special episode, as you guys know. We spend a lot of time on this show talking about my favorite Vikings player, Teddy Bridgewater. And there's a lot of reasons we talk about him a lot, and mainly because he's just perfect in pretty much every way. But we've also acknowledged a bunch of times on the show that we kind of feel like Bradford's getting a little disrespected in the process. Teddy's getting all this attention. So I thought it'd be fun tonight to basically dedicate this episode to number 8 himself. I know there's probably going to be some people upset with me about this, as I'm hosting an episode all about Bradford, and I'm also the president of the Teddy Bridgewater fan club. However, I still think it's going to be fun, and I think he's the starting quarterback, and I think he deserves an episode to himself. So we're going to talk about some of his strengths, weaknesses, run through some stats. We're going to eventually culminate in kind of talking about where he ranks amongst other NFL quarterbacks, and then make some predictions for 2017 and talk about what he needs to do to kind of lock down his role as the franchise QB in Minnesota. But first, really quick, as usual, shout out to everyone who purchases our T-shirts over the last week, and anyone that kind of just clicked that Amazon link before they made a purchase. We really appreciate that. It's a super easy way to support VT. We're talking about Sam Bradford tonight, so we also have the Team Sleeves T-shirt that I'm going to put up on the screen right now that you can go buy if you want to support number 8. Drew's also rocking a shirt that we did for him to wear to training camp this year. Him and BJ to wear to training camp. Features the VT logo and the About the Labor podcast. By the way, you got to go listen to the About the Labor podcast if you don't already. It's our favorite Vikings podcast. So anyway, if you want to support VT, you want to support the show, I'm going to put some more links in the description today. We'd really appreciate it if you purchase a shirt or just simply click that Amazon link. That would help us out. All right, so jumping right in, guys. Let's start talking about Sam Bradford. I'm going to start off tonight where I just want to outline what everyone thinks his biggest strengths are and his biggest weaknesses. So if we could just go around the table and maybe identify 2 to 3 things that you think Bradford excels at and a couple things you think he needs to improve at, that'd be a great way to start the show, I think. Drew, I know you did all this prep work going into tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and start with you. And I also know that you're the president of the Sam Bradford fan club, so no better way to kick this off than going over to you. So what do you think, man?
I did all my prep work back in January when I wrote
There you go.
3,500 word article on Bradford.
There you go. That can be found at What's the name of that article, roughly?
It's called, let's see, Analyzing Bradford's debut season in Minnesota.
Okay. All right. Check that out at VT.
So,
Sorry. So anyway,
long shelf life.
Yeah. Well, it was a good article. So
we'll link to it.
Oh, yeah, we'll link to it.
Yeah, why don't you just do that, Brad? That makes more sense instead of making people search. Anyway, no, but for real though, Sam Bradford's biggest strength for me is his accuracy. He can make all the throws, deep, short, intermediate, whatever it is. He's among the best in the NFL in terms of pure accuracy. I don't think there's any question about that. I think he showed it. Obviously the completion percentage record has some merit to it, but I think it goes beyond that because obviously he was forced to dump down quite a bit. But when he was throwing the ball down the field, he was also very accurate in comparison to the rest of the league. And then also another strength I like of his too is his toughness in the pocket. This is different than his maneuverability in the pocket. Completely different things. But as far as standing tough when there's Mike Daniels inside your pants practically, and you're still able to throw a 35-yard strike to Stephon Diggs for a touchdown, that's another good quality I like in Sam Bradford. So those two things are the biggest strengths I took away from his 2016 season.
So before I ask you about the weaknesses, I want to talk about that completion percentage. So he is first in 2016 in the NFL in completion percentage. Does the caveat to you guys carry any weight as far as, he also, dink and dunked a bunch and just checked down all the time? Does the completion percentage mean anything to you guys knowing that? Or do you think that doesn't really matter, that he showed he was the most accurate quarterback in the NFL otherwise?
I don't think it means anything. I think it means something, but I'm not going to sit here and say, because it was the NFL record, but I'm not going to sit here and say Sam Bradford had the most accurate passing season of all time. He only did statistically, but I think the difficulty of throws was definitely not that of a Dan Marino 30 years ago or something like that. So sure, it's great. He'll go down in history from a pure statistical standpoint, but I see when I see him throw the football and I see his accuracy, he could throw. His numbers could be at 65% or whatever, and I would still look at it as he's one of the most accurate passers in the league, no matter where he's thrown to on the field.
Okay, so what about weaknesses, Drew? I know it pains you to probably to bring up those sorts of things about your guy.
I am objective, and I can see when somebody's bad at something. Like Sam Bradford, 2 games for sure last year, he had interceptions late in games that arguably cost the Vikings a game. Thanksgiving against the Lions, the Redskins game, when he didn't see, I can't remember who it was, Preston Smith maybe, drop back out of that on the defensive line. So I think that crunch time he doesn't have the clutch gene that Teddy does. And I feel like, to me, when I see people debate that, I think that's kind of the difference between Teddy and Sam that kind of, for a lot of people, elevates Teddy above Sam, is the clutch gene that Teddy has shown and that Sam really hasn't. And the other thing, too, is moving around the pocket. He likes to take the snap and then stand in one spot and which, he's very tough, like I said, in the pocket. He'll sit there and take the hit, but a lot of times I don't think he has to, because I think he's a little bit quicker than people give him credit for. I think he needs to use that better, and I think if he can improve there and then also improve as his efficiency in crunch time, I think he can really take a step forward and be kind of widely known as a top 10 quarterback.
All right, thanks, man. Sean, what do you think, man? Do you have any different takes as far as what you think his strengths are, what you think his weaknesses are at this point, what he can improve on?
I am, in fact, totally in agreement with Drew. He can throw the ball, unlike Teddy, who struggled at times throwing the deep ball. Everybody saw that. Bradford doesn't have that issue. So I'm a little bit of a loss why some people are so for Bridgewater because of things like that. I feel like Bradford is a huge upgrade. He throws well under pressure, just like Bridgewater does. And he may not have the mobility that Bridgewater does, but he's able to get it done with quick decisions and getting the ball out quickly. And I think that takes him a long way in this Pat Shimmer offense.
Sean, Drew and I welcome you with open arms to Team Sleeves.
I thought you were Team Teddy.
Nope.
What?
I love Teddy. In fact, on my Madden, Teddy's my starting quarterback and Bradford's my backup. But in real life, I like Bradford better. I think he's a better overall quarterback.
But in Madden, he's not.
I have like 2016.
Teddy's probably healthy in that.
Exactly.
Ooh, yeah.
I
Big
think.
difference.
I mean, I think you guys both brought up Bradford's. I guess you're saying his pocket presence, right, is a strength.
As well as the yep.
Okay, because I mean, like, you know, not to bring Teddy in it too much, but I feel like that's where Teddy takes a huge step over Bradford is Teddy's pocket presence. I'm probably going to come off as a homer, as I usually do when I talk about Teddy. But I really do think he has elite pocket presence for a quarterback, even in his very young NFL career before he got injured. And I think I agree with you that Bradford kind of knows how to stand his ground when he's faced with pressure, but he doesn't know how to take that quick step to the side like Teddy does,
right,
you know, to evade that pressure. He kind of just rushes the throw, and it's still an accurate throw, and it usually gets there, you know, so that's great. But yeah, he definitely can't buy his time in the pocket the way Teddy can. What do you think, BJ?
Both of them.
Sorry,
with that offensive line, who can?
Right. Yeah, and I guess, you know, that's a factor that weighs into this is if the offensive line is improved, Bradford may look a whole hell of a lot better than Teddy, you know, because that aspect where I think Teddy excels over Bradford is minimized and not necessary as much anymore. But who knows if the line's going to be fixed this year. I'd like to think it is, but we'll see. What do you think, BJ? You have any different opinions than we've heard so far as strengths and weaknesses go?
Well, I think that Drew hit on the primary weakness and the primary strength for Bradford. Obviously, accuracy. I mean, like Drew said, completion percentage isn't the whole story. He's able to hit that 12-yard out with, you know, as much accuracy as anyone, and that's probably the most difficult throw to make in football. And he consistently did it on a regular basis last season, despite facing pressure coming at him and within, you know, 3 seconds time. And in terms of, you know, overall deficiencies to his game, I mean, you guys highlighted the major one, that pocket presence thing. But to break it down even further, my real issue with him is kind of his feel for the pocket. And part of that is on the offensive line because he's not able to trust a group that, you know, was having him sacked in just an absolutely absurd rate. You know, bring out the stats. I think it was like something like 6.2% of his dropbacks he was sacked. You can't trust your pocket. You can't get a good feel for what's going on. You don't know how to manipulate the pocket when you don't know which, you know, piece of it is going to cave in. So for that reason, you know, he struggled a ton in that department. And then of course the cement feet. Drew loves to touch on this. I can't believe he didn't bring up the term himself, but just the fact that he really doesn't have good footwork outside of his drop back. He drops back well. He looks very fundamentally sound in just about every facet of the footwork game, with exception to when he has to kind of, like Brett said here, when he is forced to kind of move, shift to his right, shift to his left. Anytime he's rolling, he's in real trouble because he doesn't have the ability to have that, you know, awkward arm angle and throw accurately downfield with someone coming down on him. So basically, simplify my points here. He's a very accurate passer, extremely cerebral quarterback. You know, the biggest thing one of the most impressive things I've ever seen is the fact that he was able to get ready in 10 days for Green Bay and win that football game. That says a whole lot about his work ethic and just the cerebral aspect to his game. But on the flip side to that, you know, he does have limitations, and if we don't bring up his durability issues here, that'd be a mistake as well. 2 ACLs blown out. I mean, when's the third one going to happen? That's kind of how it feels for Glass Bradford sometimes.
Yeah, that's why I was going to bring that up if no one else did, as far as one of his biggest weaknesses. I mean, it's out of his control, really, but you got to.
It's still a weakness, though. I mean, it's not like he can control that, but there are certain guys that are obviously injured more than others, and there's certain guys that are never injured ever. Bradford happens to be one of those guys that falls down like a pile of bricks when he gets hit too hard in the wrong spot.
Yeah, BJ, I think you. I think Bradford does have some mobility potential. I think there's a few plays last year where, you know, when he was forced out of the pocket, you know, and he was actually able to see that and able to see the opportunity that he could get out and make a play. I thought he did was just fine. I think it's just I don't think he's comfortable doing it. I think there's a couple plays in that Dallas game.
Why would he be?
Right.
Because I'm sure part of it is the ACL. 495.
Oh no, I was speaking that like rhetorically, kind of alluding to Sean's point that why would you ever feel comfortable behind that offensive line last year?
Right. Okay.
I'm speaking more to giving him kind of a pass in terms of what you're talking.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I remember specifically a couple of plays in that Dallas game. I think he had a really long run and then a really nice throw moving to his left.
25 yards.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's baffling to me is he's actually a decent athlete when you look at his athletic history.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's an inathletic guy, but I agree with you guys that at this point he is that old school statue pocket passer for better or for worse.
What do you, Sam? Do you want to add anything here before we move on?
No, I pretty much agree with everything that was said. I mean, these guys summed it up really well. I would just like to really quick touch on the whole completion percentage thing. That doesn't matter the circumstances that he got the record, and of course it matters some. I think that if he would have been the most accurate passer in 2016 under the circumstance, that would have been like, okay, yeah, he did well this year. He was accurate. He was the most accurate guy this year. He was the most accurate guy ever in the history of the NFL. And, of course, we take circumstance into account, but a lot of guys have tried to do that. It's not like this is the first team that's tried to dink and dunk its way down the field for one reason or another. That has been in vogue in the NFL for 25 years. And I think that you have to respect what was done regardless of the circumstance. When Drew Brees is the only guy to go over 5,000 yards more than once, do we say, wait, it's a pass-heavy offense. Of course he's going to throw for a lot of yards. They throw it down the field. He's got those fast receivers. It's a perfect system. That's true, but Drew Brees is also incredible. So I feel like I'm impressed with the completion thing a little bit more than everybody else, and I am not getting why we're not like, wow, that was a really impressive thing for Sam Bradford to do, like BJ mentioned on 10 days preparation. And
what if he had thrown for 4,000 yards?
Right.
If he all of a sudden had reached that 4,000-yard mark, which he would have had he played in the full 16 games. Yeah. He would have had 4,000 passing yards and a completion percentage that set an all-time record. I feel like we'd feel a lot different about that completion mark if he had hit that milestone.
Agreed. And I think the wins and the way they collapsed down the stretch, it's tough to really lionize the team or anybody on it after it was just what ended up being a disappointing finish.
So let's stick on the stats really quick. I'm going to run through some 2016 stats. 3,877 yards. That was 16th in the NFL. Well, let's preface this. How many games did he play? Was it
15?
15.
15? Okay.
He's missed the week one.
So 15 games. 3,877 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, interception percentage of 0.9%. Important to note that was third behind Tom Brady and Dak Prescott. Yards per attempt, he was 7th. So,
he was 18th.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He was 18th, and I was gonna bring that up too. It's like I think with the accuracy, I think I would question it a little bit more if you had seen him be inaccurate on some of those longer, more difficult passes. But that wasn't the case. Anytime he made one of those, they were, typically very accurate as well. So I think that kind of, I guess I would agree with you guys that I stand by that completion percentage as well, meaning something. QB rating, 99.3. That was 6th in the NFL. And as we've said over and over again, completion percentage, 71.6, first in the NFL last year. And as you guys were saying, first all time, right? Which is, I forget about that a lot. That's pretty crazy. So, Sam, I know you and BJ were looking at kind of some of the advanced statistics. Was there anything interesting that you two managed to find when kind of looking at that stuff?
Quickly, I don't know. Just for me, it's not really a quote-unquote advanced statistic, but the interception percentage was the one that stuck out to me, 0.9. That's percentage of throws on which you threw an interception, third in the NFL behind Tom Brady and Dak Prescott, who obviously had a phenomenal rookie season. That's impressive to me. And then the yards per attempt index is one of the actual advanced stats I looked at, where this basically is just a way of pinpointing your yards per attempt in relation to the rest of the league. So basically the median number is 100, and whether you're above or below that, that's if you're above average or below average. And he, in this index, has never been above average in his career. So that's interesting to me. He's never been above average in relation to the rest of the league in yards per attempt. Now, when we adjust, there's an adjusted yards per attempt index in which that also throws it. It's about a little bit more than just yards per attempt. That factors in touchdowns and interceptions and long plays, throws of over 20 yards and stuff like that. His yards per attempt index is higher almost every year than and above average he has gotten more than one time. And last year he was actually above average in that adjusted YPA index. So a lot of words. Basically what it says is Sam Bradford is usually in the middle of the pack or just slightly below average in yards per attempt.
Right, and that would be in line with where he was last year.
Exactly, yes.
18th in the NFL, about right in the middle. BJ, what about you, man? You catch your eye when you were looking at all that stuff?
Yeah, there's a couple of them here. Scott Kasmer at Football Outsiders is one of my favorite statisticians because he's the type of dude that comes up with innovative stats that answer the questions for us. One of my favorite ones that he does is kind of an overlooked one. Is one that he actually named after Alex Smith specifically. It's air less yards over expected yards, something like that. So basically, if you're sitting at 3rd and 5, how many yards do you throw past the first down marker? How many yards do you underthrow that 5 yards in the air? In theory, this is supposed to measure whether you're dink and dunking in critical situations. So that's what the Football Outsiders tries to measure, is these situational stats with context, right? So this is a statistic that Sam Bradford did not fare well in. I believe he was about as close to, it shouldn't surprise you, I don't think. He's about as bad as it gets in terms of relative to the rest of the league. His Alex last season was minus 1.2 yards. So on average, he was throwing negative 1.5 yards in front of where he should have been throwing the ball past, if that makes sense. So one more time, if he's throwing 3rd and 10, he's throwing the ball based off of this average at the 9-yard mark, which is about a yard short of the first down, expecting his playmakers to do all the work. So this kind of helps our accuracy conversation, helps us judge how important that accuracy record really is, because he was throwing short of the sticks a lot of the time, not taking risks downfield. Part of that is it goes back to the offensive line, but a big factor is that he simply didn't feel comfortable throwing the ball past beyond the first down marker to get the necessary yards. And that also could be on Pat Shurmur for simply calling plays to emphasize his playmakers. So there are a lot of caveats here that we don't have the answer to, but I like that stat because I think it does give some perspective on the completion percentage and how much we should value that, like Sam was saying, versus, for example, Drew Brees, who was completing, I think, 69 or 70% with a 5,000-yard season, throwing the ball way, way downfield all the time, which should be considerably more impressive.
Do you have Bradford's career numbers in the Alex stat?
I do not. I can give you also the 2015 numbers because I have those on hand.
It'd be interesting just to compare.
Well, I can give you 2015, which could be interesting because I also have Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, too, because I feel like no one brought this up as a weakness, but I feel like when you watch Bradford, and now that you've brought this up, BJ, thinking back to last season, I feel like that was happening all the time, throwing short of the sticks over and over and over again. Do you guys feel like Bradford goes through his progressions at a high level?
He can't.
Okay.
He doesn't have the time to.
See, I feel like that's somewhere where I think, again, where Teddy excels is because Teddy created those opportunities, and then he would still go through his progressions because his pocket presence was so elite. And I'm interested to see BJ's.
Just a quick update here. It looks like the stats don't go all the way back to 2015. It looks like the guys at Football Outsiders implemented the Alex system into kind of their overall equation, which is filled with a number of other interesting stats if you want to check them out, like DVOA, DYAR, stuff like that, until 2016. So unfortunately, I don't have the answer to.
Yeah, I love how it's called Alex, though. That's tremendous.
Yeah, that's
you should check out his kind of breakdown on how he came up with the stat is I think it's 2 or 3 years old, and then he kind of wrote an entire article based on why he named it this, how he came up with the stat, and how Alex Smith was kind of his spirit animal in coming up with this statistic. Obviously, Alex Smith is like the worst all time for error less expected yards, something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, it gets pretty complicated. All that stuff's good, but my head starts to spin pretty quickly when looking at those football stats. All right, so let's move on from the stats. I kind of wanted to talk about something a little bit more emotional, I guess, and less analytical when talking about Bradford. Is there a moment in 2016 where you guys feel like it was Bradford's defining moment? Like, this is the guy that's going to be our franchise QB, and he epitomized it in this one game or this one play or this one instance. And if so, I want to know what that moment was. So, Sean, you got a moment for me that made you say, I'm on team sleeves now?
I do, and unfortunately it was his first week 2 at home against Green Bay, and hopefully you guys can think of some other scenarios where he played well, but that was definitely his defining moment, in my opinion. I don't think any certain play really sticks out, but he was very consistent throughout the season, and unfortunately we were playing from behind later on in the season, and he was still able to move the ball downfield, but definitely week 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can't be understated. Like, I agree with you, and I think it can't be understated how important that game was. Like, we could not lose that game, right? Like, we owe Sam Bradford that first round pick for winning us that game in week 2, basically, because I can't imagine a worse situation where Packers fans get to say we beat you in the first game in your new stadium, in front of the entire world. And
instead they just say, how many Super Bowls do you have? We have 5.
Right.
Or you just remind them that their all-time great quarterback got picked off by Trey Waynes to lose the game.
That's right.
That generally will shut them up.
That was excellent.
That's kind of beside the point, but still relevant always. Right, Drew?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I think that's a good one, Sean. I think he kind of set the bar very early on, and I think that would probably be my answer too. What do you think, Sam? You got a moment?
That one's tough to beat as far as a moment or a game, but the play I keep going back to, and I wish I would have researched this today, but I ran out of time. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was in the Texans game, and I think it was somebody was coming around the edge. I think it was Whitney Merciless, and just absolutely smacked Sam Bradford.
It was just right over the middle?
Yeah, it's just a crosser to Jarius Wright, but the poise he showed in getting the pass off in the face of, he was clear death, and the fact that the ball was right on the money and got a first down, I believe it was on 3rd down. I remember seeing that and going, wow. I mean, that he has very little pocket mobility, but just the presence to stand in there and deliver that ball impressed me a lot.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that he didn't fall apart right there.
Me
for
too.
The record. Based off of our earlier discussion about the durability issues, that hit in particular, I thought he was done right there. I honestly did. I thought the season was over right there.
Yeah. I feel like there were a lot of those moments last season where I think you said it earlier, BJ. Like, when he gets hit, he just kind of crumbles to the ground, and you're just like, oh god,
He doesn't fall well. I don't. You know how Sam, you'll get this. Bill Burr describes how toddlers and women fall similarly when you hit them. I think Sam Bradford is very similar in that regard, in that when you hit him, it's like he never saw it coming, and just kind of just collapses, explodes into
yes, it did.
Explodes into dust. It's like the Wicked Witch of the West, right? He just falls, melts.
Right. And it was the first game against the Packers game. His thumb got dislocated or something in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, "Oh, of course this will happen." Now we got to go with Sean Hill. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. What about you, BJ? A defining moment?
I have 2. The first one goes back to what Sean said, but specifically the Stephon Diggs touchdown, the deep one that basically was kind of the game. It ultimately proved to be the game winner. Came out of halftime ready to roll, got the lead, and then held on to it. Played well enough to win. It's to simplify what Sean said just into one play. That was the kind of the play when I knew that he was capable of being an adequate replacement. At the same time, I do have a second defining moment, which brought him back to square one. When he threw that pick to Darius Slay, I started immediately thinking, we got a quarterback that can do it all, but he can't do it in the final 30 seconds, which has seemingly always been the Vikings' Achilles heel. So that one kind of took me back, and I think that type of moment, this Preston Smith one that Drew also referenced earlier, those type of moments really stick in my mind, and possibly unfairly so, but it's tough to evaluate the complete body of work of a quarterback without how he handles pressure down the stretch in critically important games. And so for that reason, the Darius Slay pick, when Big Play Slay really stepped up and honestly kind of defined the Detroit Lions season in the process, is one of the defining moments that I'm going to remember from the 2016 season as well for Bradford.
Real quick on that, the Slay one, because this just reminded me. Have I told you guys my Manny story after that game? Okay, so I was back home and watched the game, and it was super depressing. And I think it was the next day, my family went to Manny's. We had a gift card, so it was the first time I had ever been. But obviously, that's the steakhouse that all the Minnesota athletes go to, and that's where they wine and dine people when they try to get free agents. And we were talking to the waiter after a couple scotches, and we were like, "Come on, like who's been in here recently? Like, give us the celebrities you've waited on." And he rattled off a couple names. He's like, Sam Bradford comes in here. He's like, Sam Bradford actually had a reservation yesterday, the day of the game. But after the game, he called in and said, actually, I'll take that to go.
Oh, man.
Because he didn't want to be out.
That's great. That's great intel right there.
I thought you were going to say, like, he just didn't show up, and then I had this picture in my head of, like, Bradford sitting alone in the corner of the McDonald's, just like...
Exactly.
with Teddy Bridgewater across the street and Fran getting attention from a bunch of crazy fans.
Yeah.
Right.
I also, really quick, not to get too sidetracked, but I feel like I've always wanted to tell this story. One time I was at a buffet here, and at the buffets you kind of have waiters. They like bring you your drinks or whatever. So anyway, I was wearing a Vikings jersey because that was back when I thought you could still wear Vikings jerseys on not game day, just like out in public. I don't remember how old I was, but this was like
14.
This was probably like 10 years ago or something. So anyway, the waiter sees my jersey. He's like, "You a Vikings fan, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, I got a cousin or a brother or something like that plays for them." I'm like, "No way, who is it?" I'm getting all pumped up, and he's like, "Oh, it's Troy Williamson," and I was just like, and that was when all that stuff with Troy Williamson was going on. It was probably like maybe even the day after he had that incredible drop in the middle of the field that we all know him for, and I was just like, "Oh yeah,
that's
cool.
Great."
Cool.
He's cool. We like him.
I don't remember what I said, but I was kind of like, "Oh."
He's very fast.
Yes. All right. Anyway, Drew, close us out with a defining moment, really quick, for your guy.
My guy. I think BJ, when he referenced the throw to Diggs, that's for sure one. I think the other throw in that game, the 45-yarder to Diggs, when the Packers had him blanketed with bracket coverage, and Bradford threw the ball in the exact spot, 50-some yards downfield for that 45-yard completion. That was a dime, and just a mind-bogglingly accurate throw. Look at that.
That was the diving catch, correct?
Yeah.
Diving catch by Diggs.
That was a diving catch.
Incredibly accurate.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was literally perfect. But
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic because you're saying it wasn't accurate because he had to dive.
No, it was literally in the only spot that nobody but Diggs could get to it.
Okay.
If he had forced or had not forced Diggs to dive, it would have probably hit. I think he was Demarius Randall's helmet right there. Okay. He had to go to the side, but
okay. I just wanted to make sure.
But then I think the interception to Preston Smith, the interception to Darius Slay, that kind of to the national audience, they definitely defined his season more than that Week 2 game, and I think. That's kind of how people know him, as the dink and dunk guy plus the guy that threw those 2 interceptions. And that's kind of the reason the Vikings didn't make the playoffs last year, you could say. But I think we also forget the home Lions game. Sam Bradford led that team down in a game, essentially what should have been a game-winning touchdown drive. And they scored with 20 seconds left. Reidell had that crazy reverse. And
that he fumbled into the end zone.
Mike Zimmer went to like ultra soft prevent defense. And the Lions had like a 35-yard completion. And then Matt Prater's 56-yarder, we go to overtime, and then the Vikings lose the game because the Lions bound score. So I think we should remember that because Bradford, while he's not known for the clutch gene, that was a clutch drive, and they should have won that game.
It's an excellent point.
Can I just point out one more, because this one just stuck in my head as soon as Drew started talking. The fade that he threw to Adam Thielen against Marcus Cooper in the back right corner of the end zone against the Arizona Cardinals during the second half. That was an absolutely perfect fade that only Adam Thielen could catch that ball, and Marcus Cooper had no shot, despite absolutely being draped all over him. Great catch by Thielen, but even better pass by Bradford, in my opinion, which just shows you how many levels he can hit in terms of accuracy. He can throw that fade accurately in the back of the end zone. They can also hit you deep over the top with double coverage and this cornerback trailing into a perfect spot to dig. So just the array of his accuracy, I think that's just important to note, because he doesn't get credit for being able to hit at every level and do every single route. Fades aren't easy to throw. Right. If you ever tried throwing one in the backyard to your buddies, you miss like every time.
Oh, I hit him.
Good point.
To Drew's point too about the Lions, the comeback that should have been, the comeback that wasn't. In a way, a light version of that would be the Dallas game, because he drove that team down the field, and then the face mask that wasn't called, and Jeremiah false start Searles, and again Bradford did have an inaccurate throw to end the game, but it should have been a penalty. Shouldn't have been a false start. So. Yeah.
I was there. It was awful.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
In Austin.
A great game, but it was disappointing the way it ended, obviously. All right, so let's talk about now where we think Bradford ranks amongst his peers. So I'm looking to you guys. Basically, you can do it one of two ways. I guess you could give me like the tier you think he's in and name some of the people that are around him, or you could just, if you want to start if you actually made a list and you want to run down that list and then end where you think Bradford is, I think that's a good way to do it as well. So, Drew, it looks like you're prepped and ready to go with that. So why don't you kick us off?
I actually put this out on Twitter 2 months ago, and it blew up, and I got all kinds of hate for it. Like, somehow I ended up in Seahawks Twitter for having Ham Neumann above Russell Wilson or something, and it was bad. But number one is Aaron Rodgers. There's no doubt about that. Don't even try and tell me Tom Brady's better than Aaron Rodgers. You're wrong.
How dare you?
Rodgers, Brady.
Tom Brady's the greatest of all time, but right now he's not as good as Rodgers.
Yep.
Disagree.
Okay.
Keep going.
I disagree,
we won't get sidetracked too much on this. All right, go ahead, Drew. Sorry.
So Rodgers, Brady, Breeze, Luck, and Roethlisberger, my top five. Then 6 through 10, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, Derek Carr, Matt Stafford. And then following Stafford at 10, 11 is Mariota, 12 is Phillip Rivers, 13 is Jameis Winston, and 14 is Sam Bradford. That's where I have Sam Bradford falling.
See, who are the three below him on your list?
Three below him on the list. I have 15 Dak Prescott, 16 Ryan Tannehill, and 17 I have Kirk Cousins.
There's a couple interesting things to me about this list. I think he's way too close to Ryan Tannehill, personally.
Tannehill's underrated, by the way.
I think Tannehill's too high.
Well, that's basically what I'm saying. So I feel like you're almost disrespecting Bradford by putting him within proximity of Tannehill. But then it's interesting to me that you have Mariota and Winston above Bradford as well, I guess.
Mariota is the real deal. I feel like I have a pretty low compared to what most people have him.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a top 10 quarterback right now, arguably.
All right, I guess. Hold on, I think are you guys still there?
Top 10.
Something just happened. Might have to. I
think we're losing Sam.
Yeah, Sam, you there, man? Oh man, I feel like this is going to be like just every episode. This is going to happen once now. It's never going to top last week though, when it froze on Adam's face doing his Sam Bradford impersonation. Okay.
I think Sam was thought my Mariota top 10 statement was preposterous. So I think that's.
What about Winston though? Why Winston above Bradford? I guess what has Winston done to put him above Bradford at this point?
He is. I see him as an elite leader, like for how young he is, especially. Like I think obviously there's been kind of some controversy, but I think he makes all the throws. He has some questionable decision making for sure, and some of the throws he decides to make. But I think arm talent is all there, leadership is all there, and I mean he's part of the reason Mike Evans is the stud he is. I think so.
Okay. All right. You guys have any comments about Drew's list? Or are you just ready to give your own?
Probably should have written this out for you guys so you could look at it still, because I'm sure you forgot already. But
no,
I'll just jump in right here because I'm right on the same page with Drew for the most part here. I went Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, obviously. Then Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Phillip Rivers, Derek Carr. And then I have Kirk Cousins 11, Matthew Stafford 12, Jameis Winston 13, Marcus Mariota 14, Sam Bradford 15. And then after that, I have Eli, Andy Dalton, and Tyrod Taylor after that. So basically, same general region as Drew. I completely agree with him that Jameis Winston is a step behind him. So that's kind of based off of potential and what the potential that he's shown and kind of the correctable mistakes that he's shown. I'm completely on board with what Drew said about Marcus Mariota. I'm really scared of what Tennessee's going to be in a couple of years here. I think Kirk Cousins is severely underrated. This is a guy that did an unbelievable job last year. And Eli Manning falls. The only reason I don't have Eli Manning ahead of Sam Bradford, obviously Eli Manning is a borderline Hall of Famer. I just don't think he's as good as Sam Bradford is currently. But when you get Eli Manning hot, there really isn't a better quarterback in the NFL. So that is a caveat that should be considered here.
Right. I mean, we're talking about, just to be clear on the rankings, we're talking about presently, right? Like today.
Right.
We're not taking into consideration, what they've achieved. So real quick, Sam, are you able to hear us now? Or?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. So since Sam was gone, BJ, can you just run through the 5 above and below Bradford on your list really quick, just so he can get an idea of where you had him as your kind of your tier?
Sure. So to round out the top 10, I have Phillip Rivers at 9, Derek Carr at 10. I'm cool with switching either of those guys around for the record. I have Kirk Cousins 11, Matthew Stafford 12. Again, you can switch those two around if you want. The next tier for me is Winston Mariota Bradford. So that's kind of that third tier, basically the average quarterback that's going to be good enough to win, but not good enough to make your team as a whole better. I think that Winston and Mariota are on the brink of eclipsing that phase. For that reason, that's why they're above Bradford. I don't think he'll ever get to that stage. And then right below him, Eli Manning, Andy Dalton, and then Tyrod Taylor.
So you have Bradford 15th?
Correct.
Interesting. And it's funny how Winston and Mariota are always right next to each other. I have them right next to each other, too.
I can't pick between the two. I went with Winston simply because I personally like his style better. But I think that there's a schematic fit for Marcus Mariota. And honestly, Winston's just in a better situation than a lot of quarterbacks.
Sure.
I mean, You've seen the weapons that they've accumulated for him. They just got O.J. Howard on top of Mike Evans. Come on. Hard to lose in that type of situation. So that, honestly, it does influence my ranking to some degree.
Sure, and it just seems like the draft class, the two of them will be forever tied.
Right. Well, it's like Teddy and Carr, right? I mean, it's a similar scenario.
Similar, yeah.
People are going to compare the two probably for the rest of their career. So, all right. What about you, Sean? Drew's having some technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on right now, so he'll jump back in a second too. So,
I mean, did you guys forget that you're talking about the quarterback who completed the highest percentage of passes ever last year? I think he's
that's an excellent point.
Borderline top 10 quarterback this year.
Oh, hold on, that's a projection.
Sean is bullish.
Oh, I guess that's fair, though.
I don't really have a problem with that.
Yeah, I guess it can be a projection.
I missed that. What did you say?
Sorry, Drew. So basically what happened when you were gone is Sean called you guys out for not actually being on team sleeves because you're way too low on Sam.
Ooh,
by putting him next to the likes of scrubs like Winston and Mariota. So
I still want to hear this explanation.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Borderline top 10.
Go ahead, Sean. Give it to us.
I'm looking at the PFF rankings.
That's right.
PJ.
I love PFF rankings when they say what I want.
He is ranked well in those rankings, isn't he?
Exactly, and we got quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins and Tannehill right up there. I feel like Bradford's a much better quarterback than those two. So you got Brady, Ryan, Rodgers, Luck, Wilson, Carr, Breeze, Stafford, then Cousins, Prescott, Roethlisberger, and then Bradford. So if it was
Dak
me,
ahead of Bradford.
Okay, hold on.
I do too.
these rankings.
That's a problem.
Sean, run through it one more. I wish that what we should have done is had a little piece of paper that you put up so you can kind of see it because it's so hard to visualize. So can you run through them one more time, a little bit slower? And I just want to make sure you said Ryan ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Matt Ryan ahead
And I'm
of
going by
Aaron
the
Rodgers?
PFF rankings here.
Oh, okay. So these aren't your rankings. These are PFF
Yeah,
rankings.
these are PFF. Yeah.
Oh.
So
Okay.
mine are very similar to the PFF. I would
Okay.
just swap Cousins basically with Bradford.
Okay, so give us your
So
rankings.
I'll run. I've got Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan,
Okay.
Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Derek Carr, Stafford, and then Bradford.
So 9.
Ooh.
Yep.
Number 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who does that put below him now? You didn't mention Ben Roethlisberger, correct?
Correct.
That's-
I have
that's
them
a-
basically equal.
Okay, that's a
No Cam
pretty
Newton.
significant.
That's
Yeah,
a
no
hot
Cam
take
Newton there.
right there, man.
This is extremely hot.
I don't have so much a problem with what Sean is saying here. I do think that he does have a case to be a borderline top 10 quarterback, at least heading into this year, because there are so many things that if it had fallen into place the correct way, we could be thinking differently. My issue is kind of the guys that you had ranked above and below. Like Ben Roethlisberger, for me, is clearly a better quarterback.
That's the big one for me too.
Yeah.
I think you could make an argument for a lot.
And
Roethlisberger, I don't see
Did
it.
Phillip
Like I
Rivers?
said, I have
Where's
them
Phillip
both the
Rivers?
Sure.
Rivers, I would argue, is pretty
Below.
clear-cut as well. I think that you make a good point that Kirk Cousins is a good dividing line with Sam Bradford. I think that you either go one way or the other there.
You're recalling the Dalton line, the Cousins line? Is that what we're doing?
Kind of, yeah. Honestly, I'm sort of okay with that. I like that. That's good. The Dalton line. Yeah.
No, the Cousins line.
Excuse me, yeah, the Cousins line. Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Okay. Sean, that's hot, man. I like it. I think you're showing up these supposed sleeves fans here.
I don't think he's a middle-of-the-road quarterback. He's better than that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, just out of curiosity now, is he considerably better than Teddy Bridgewater in your opinion? I mean, obviously this is a completely loaded question because there's no way of comparing the two. We made that very clear in the past. But in your mind, do you believe Sam Bradford is the better quarterback, just in your subjective opinion?
As far as a big gap between them, no. I think they're very close because of their... It's different because of their different intangibles.
Sure.
Teddy's leadership, things of that nature. But no, I think they're very close talent-wise.
So you'd have Teddy in the same range, probably?
Right, that was my subsequent question as well.
Had he never been
A couple
injured?
spots lower, correct.
Couple spots lower, okay.
Absolutely.
That would also be a hot take, but that's one I can get behind. Sam, I think you're our last guy.
I'll go through it real quick. I have number 1 Tom Brady because that is the correct answer, and then
Thank you, sir.
Aaron Rodgers at 2. Then we go Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, Roethlisberger. That's the top 5. Breeze, Carr, Luck. Drew would yell at me if he were here. I got Eli Manning at 9. Then it goes Stafford, Newton, Cousins, Rivers, Flacco, Prescott, then Bradford at 16. Now,
You have Eli Manning way too high on your list.
see,
that's why.
I think I like Manning, like 2-time Super Bowl MVP.
Hey, Sam, I'm okay with this. Like I said before.
I don't know, and also like, so my thing is, I think Sam Bradford honestly is right around the middle of the road. I could put him as high as 11 or 12 on this list. Like a lot of these guys right above him, I think are kind of interchangeable. Realize that Flacco at 14, we might need to knock him down a few, because right now I have Mariota and Winston both directly behind Bradford. That might be a little low for those two. I don't know. I actually like what Prescott did a lot last year. I'm a big fan of the ball control, the not turning the ball over and helping your team win, which is what he was asked to do, and that's what he did. So I don't penalize him for not throwing for 1 billion yards as much.
Yeah.
As a rookie. And another thing, sorry, Brady, real quick. You guys said Brady's a better career, but Rodgers is better right now. Brady just had the best year of his career. So what are we missing? How is Tom Brady not the best he's ever been right now?
Yeah.
What?
You know what? I'm not going to fight you hard on
Chris
this.
Hogan, of course.
I'm not going to fight you hard on this because have a strong dislike for Aaron Rodgers, so sure, I'll give that to you.
Allow me to read off some stats
I just
for
find
you.
I find it interesting that even in a Sam Bradford conversation where he's very polarizing this debate here, not very polarized, but polarizing nonetheless, that Eli Manning still found a way to be clear-cut the most polarizing quarterback when it comes to ranking quarterbacks.
You know what, man? I think it's because, you know what? I think my perspective might be different on Manning, just because every time we see the Vikings play him, the Vikings absolutely just ruin him. And so I think, so that's...
We destroy him every single time.
So that's my, reality, seeing, thinking about the Vikings games versus the Giants.
Fair.
But I don't know, man. I mean, was it 2015 or 2014? He just had an awful season.
But he does that, and then he has the hottest 3-game stretches of all time.
That's a big thing.
And that's what really does it for me, because he can turn it on at any second.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I still stand by thinking you have Manning way too high.
He might be.
But top 10 quarterback, I don't know about that.
But who would you clearly put over him? Kirk Cousins? No.
Right
Cam
now,
Newton
yeah.
After last year,
I'd put Cousins over him right now.
I think Cam Newton, yes.
Kirk Cousins is over.
I'd put Cam Newton over. I think Kirk Cousins is overrated as well, but I'd still put him above Manning. I would put
Cam Newton completed 52% of his passes last year.
Okay, but
his offensive
Eli
line.
Manning threw for some of the most interceptions in history just a couple years ago. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I mean he was having a historically bad season.
He throws some picks. Hey, but Phillip Rivers led the league in picks last year, and you have him over a lot of these guys, don't you, Brad?
Did he really lead the league in picks
Yes, he
last
did.
year?
Yes, he did.
Actually, you know what? I'm not prepped with my own list, so you guys can't call me out on it.
Phillip Rivers was forced into a worse offensive line situation than the Vikings last year without Keenan Allen to bail him out and basically Melvin Gordon to run his ship. So I'm giving him a pass on last year.
Agreed. That's what me too.
Question.
Go ahead.
I have a question. Where do you guys have Joe Flacco ranked on your list? Or where would you? Because I have him number 26.
Joe Flacco's an elite quarterback.
Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco.
I would put him. I would put
an anomalic 4-game stretch in the playoffs. And that is why he's
probably 19. I think.
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking too. Late teens, early 20s.
Right in front of Wentz and Tannehill for me.
See, I got a mid-teens. I think he's right next to Bradford. Does that make me a bad person?
I think that's
talking my way off team sleeves.
No, I think
Flacco.
I think
they're kind of similar.
So
you're way too wacko for Flacco.
So
way too wacko.
All right, so we got to move on. So basically, to summarize here, you guys all have Bradford about middle of the pack, and Sean is hot over there on Bradford, and he's got him at 9. I think some, he was talking about projection, and I definitely think Bradford could be a top 10 quarterback. Did you guys see the stat or the tweet? And I had it in our show notes when we were going to talk about some other things, but when we changed it to the Bradford topic, I deleted it. He said the Vikings had they played the best pass rushing defenses of any other team last year, and that combined with they had the most injured offensive line in the NFL. And basically the point of the tweet was to basically say it was an anomaly, so expect the trajectory to go up. So I think with that being considered, I think that provides some optimism for Bradford, and I think I could definitely see a situation where he's a top 10 quarterback this year.
Definitely could. I think we're all in agreement that definitely, it's not out of the question. We just kind of need to see it. Brett, before we move on, top of the head, where would you rank him? Give me a number.
It would be right smack dab in the middle, man. Cool. I don't have it laid out, and I guess I just...
Who do you think is directly in front of him and directly below? I know you've got a couple, you've mentioned Tannehill a couple times as a guy that's for sure below Bradford. I feel like you have a general idea.
I put him, honestly, in the Cousins-Dalton range, I think.
Cousins-Dalton?
That's an insult. That's an insult to Sam Bradford. Both of those names are.
That's kind of an insult to Cousins. I mean,
so on my list, that's between 11 and 17. So I'm really okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's that middle tier, and that's where I put Bradford as well. So
I think 11 to 17 is a good range. I know it's kind of wide, but 11 to 17 sounds about right to me.
Yeah. I had. So let me see. I'd also put him around. Gosh, man, Kirk Cousins had a good year statistically last year.
Good 2 years.
Statistically, he did.
I know. I'm just looking at the NFL stats right now. So,
don't go just by that, please.
Well, I know, but I was just looking at it to kind of see what names are around him.
Kirk Cousins is freaking elite.
I'd put him above Eli Manning. I'd put him right next to Joe Flacco.
What about Dak?
I'd put him right next. I'd put him a little bit below Dak, probably like one or. I'd put him right next to Dak. So I guess Dak. Who else did I say? Dalton, Cousins,
freaking Dak,
Flacco. I'd put them all in that same group right there.
This might be the Bradford line now.
What do you mean?
Well, like the Dalton line, but it's
maybe.
the Bradford.
I mean, that's kind of that whole mediocre tier right there.
Except for so wait, Drew, what number did you have him at?
Me?
Yeah.
I had him 14th.
So the same region as the rest of us, except Sean.
No,
Sean is not happy.
He mentioned all these names that are like significantly low compared to Bradford.
Cousins though is significantly worse than Bradford.
He said Cousins was 7. Okay, he said Cousins, who's lower than Bradford on mine by 3 spots. He said Andy Dalton, who's 6 spots lower. He said Joe Flacco, who's 12 spots lower.
Well, you're on the Barstool Sports Joe Flacco hate. I feel like that's what's going on. Your mind.
No, I love me some PFT commenter.
All right, guys, we got to move on. This is running long. No, it's okay. All right, so we had some other things we were going to dive into, Bradford, but we might have to save that for another time. We're going to wrap up this episode really quick, as we've been trying to do, with some fun off-topic stuff. So this week we're going to be talking movie Desert Island. So this is just kind of inspired by, we're all big Office fans around here, so the episode of The Office where they're all sitting around talking about their favorite Desert Island movies. That's kind of what prompted this for me, because I basically just watched The Office and rewatched it over and over and over again. So anyway, I want your guys' top 3 Desert Island movies, and I'm going to start with Drew, because his is going to be really quick. Because he's going to say he doesn't have any because he doesn't watch movies.
I have some movies. I've watched movies.
You have watched movies. Okay.
I watch like 3 in a year, and that's not even like a low exaggeration. Like that's about as many.
That's insane, man. I don't think I've ever met someone that's that low on movies before.
I'm the exact same way. I watch a few documentaries on Netflix.
Oh God, you're a documentary.
I could go a lot of different ways here. I'm gonna go. Remember the Titans. Classic sports movie that is, has an awesome plot to it. I'm going to throw it back to the childhood here because this is just a classic. Toy Story 1 and 2. That'd be on my desert island.
Hold on, is that your last? You can't say 1 and 2. That's 2 movies.
Box set, 1 box counts.
Is that how it works?
It is a movie series. I'm going to put it on my desert island.
So you brought the box set, but you left out 3. You just took that one out.
Okay, what we should be talking about here is I brought cassettes instead of like DVDs.
Ooh,
okay.
Old school. Okay.
Toy Story is throwback. Anyway,
all right. What's your third one?
I'll wrap it up with. I don't even know. Okay. Here's you gotta get some chuckles on the desert island, right? If you're on the desert island, you're gonna be. It's very lonely. You're gonna be depressed. You gotta get yourself lifted up a little bit. I'm a huge fan of Sid the Sloth. Give me some Ice Age.
Interesting. I feel like it has been a really long time since you've watched movies because you just Toy Story and Ice Age.
That was nuts. That was like nothing before 2002.
Yeah, those are all from the 90s, I think.
It's kind of impressive.
Yeah.
You couldn't think of anything beyond when you were 12.
For my sports movie, I was thinking of either Remember the Titans, Hoosiers, or 42. That was the Jackie Robinson one, right? Which that was recent, but it was a throwback.
You're missing one, Drew. You're missing one, and I'm gonna bring it up on my list.
All right, go ahead.
You're missing one for sure.
It's Miracle, isn't it? It's Miracle.
No. Okay, so these are my top 3 movies. I split up this exercise by picking one movie for my favorite genre, basically in order to hit on all the points that I crave when I watch movies, right? I'm not a big movie guy either. I'm more of a TV show guy. But if I had to pick 3 movies, my comedy is Wedding Crashers. I can watch that forever, and I always think it's hilarious. It's never not funny to me. Vince Vaughn is just tops. Number 2 for me is my psychological thriller, the one that makes me kind of my mind bender. Prisoners with Jake Gyllenhaal. Absolutely fantastic film. If you're into psychological thrillers and kind of jumpy shock value movies, it's very twisted and weird and makes you think. I'm a big fan. And then my final one, Drew, Coach Carter. I think that's the best sports movie of all time. I think that, I really do. Yeah, I stand by that. And this comes from like the ultimate Major League fan too. I think it's the best sports movie of all time. I think it has a great message to it, and I think it's, it has the sentimental value that I look for in the type of movie that's, trying to kind of convey a message of, you can do it kind of thing. So I'm a big fan of all 3 of those movies for different reasons.
I love your list, mainly because of Prisoners. The director of that movie, his name is Dennis Villanueva.
Right.
I think I pronounced that right. Anyway, that dude's like my new favorite director. Arrival. I don't know if you guys have seen Arrival. Mm-hmm. Oh, excellent movie. Prisoners, as you just mentioned. And then Sicario. Have you guys seen Sicario?
I've heard of that one before.
Oh my gosh, man. All of his movies are gold. So, like, if you like Prisoners, you need to go watch the rest of his stuff because it's all exceptional.
Is that your list?
No, sorry. And I know, we're running long on time too, and I'm like getting off topic. But all right, Sean, what's your list, man?
I'll make mine short and sweet here. Shawshank Redemption.
Classic choice.
I've actually seen that.
You said you have not seen that?
That's
I've
called
actually seen that. We have to point that out.
That's called the Drew line. We're going to call that the
Drew line.
If Drew's seen it or not.
That's how you know it's popular.
Right.
Little Caesar's line.
Number 2 sports movie is Sandlot.
Oh yeah.
And number 3 classic, The Big Lebowski.
Oh, that is a good one.
Never seen it.
That is a good
one. Oh, you got to see that.
I actually haven't seen The Big Lebowski either.
No!
Oh, wow.
I've seen all the important parts for what it's worth, but I've never seen the actual movie front.
You've seen all the memes from it, but you haven't seen the...
what's on Sandlot?
I've seen the YouTube clips in order to understand the memes. Yes, I've seen that kind of stuff, yeah.
All right, Sam, what you got?
The Big Lebowski is indeed on my list as well. The probably the most quotable movie in my life that I've ever watched. And one of those that usually when I watch movies, I don't like them as much. It's the first time. Big Lebowski keeps getting better the more times you watch it. Love it. Second one, I think this is underrated. It's kind of a drama thriller movie, Blow, about cocaine.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp and Penelope Cruz. I think it was the pinnacle of Depp's career. It's just a really, really good story before he got all weird. And then number 1, this is just my childhood. It's my favorite movie ever by far. A movie called Heavyweights. If you haven't seen it, go rent it, watch it. It's my favorite movie of all time.
That's a good one.
What do you got,
I
Brad?
have one question, one follow-up question real quick.
Yep.
The second half of Blow, it doesn't depress you enough to take it off your list?
It does depress me. It does. This is a great question, BJ, but it hits me, and I feel like if I'm on a desert island, everything is going to be so great because it's going to be sun and palm trees all the time. I'm going to need
You're very
that,
optimistic.
that undertone. Yeah.
Except you'll be
I'm
starving
thinking like
and fighting for
one
your
palm tree,
life.
110 degrees.
Talented person.
No, I'll be hollowing out a coconut and just crying when his daughter's in prison and he's in prison. His daughter won't visit him. Whatever.
Well, I was kind of wondering this, like, because I was thinking about the term desert island, right? And I wanted to make sure it wasn't deserted island, but it is desert island, and that's kind of interesting to me because it's like when you think, is it specifically a desert island? Like we're talking like a Mojave Desert on an island, or
I literally just think of it as a clump of sand with one palm tree, and you're sitting underneath the palm tree, and that's all you got. You're surrounded by water. Okay. That's my personal
desert.
Desert island, yeah, that's
deserted.
No, it's not deserted. It's not deserted. It's desert.
It probably is deserted.
I googled this before the show because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't.
So what does it say?
It's desert. The term is desert island. Like that's the game. It's a desert island. That's what they call this game we're playing right now.
But it's a deserted island. It's the same thing. Like
no, it's not the same thing. A desert is like a desert.
But it is. The word desert as a verb means to leave or abandon someone or something. So if an island is deserted, it is the game.
But just because it's deserted
Brett
doesn't necessarily mean
desert,
it's desert.
and it's not deserted.
Right. Anyway, we're not gonna. We'll,
not important. Watching this video, you can tell us in the comments section who is right about this, because I feel like this is one of those weird things where nobody knows the actual answer, but everyone grew up in different ways. No. So I'm curious what a lot of people have to think.
I'm reading the definition of desert as a verb. Desert is defined as to leave or abandon someone or something. An example of
Are you sure it's not dessert island, like what you have after dinner island?
It's a sweet dish, commonly followed by coffee.
Look, I appreciate you, BJ, telling everyone to leave comments, because I also want them to leave comments, but Drew's wrong on this one. Don't bother leaving
comments.
Brett,
we need your 3.
All right, my 3 really quick. I also, Sam, I'm with you. I also watch a lot of obscure movies and documentaries. So for the sake of this and making it interesting, I'm going to leave those types of movies off this list. I was trying to go more like, I'm thinking like what gives me comfort, like what I enjoy watching over and over and over again in those movies I kind of fall back to. All right, so the first one on my list is Hook. Classic movie, and I just like grew up watching Hook. Oh, come on, man. Peter Pan, Robin Williams. No, Drew?
Not really my scene, but I respect the pick.
Those guys are a little too young, Brett. That was our childhood.
All right. I'm probably going to embarrass myself with this one, or I'm going to give myself like awesome Minnesota street cred. Purple Rain. That movie right there, man. It's like I grew up watching that movie. My mom watched that movie like once a week probably. So I grew up listening to the soundtrack, grew up watching the movie all the time. Absolutely love that movie. And my last one is kind of a mind-bender thriller, because I'm also into that genre, BJ, and that's Inception.
That's great. It's great.
And I absolutely love that movie.
You'll never figure that movie out the entire time you're on that island, too.
Yeah, probably. I'll probably drive myself crazy.
Something like Shutter Island would be great, because you just think yourself to death. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So anyway, that's my list.
Question.
Oh, go ahead, Drew.
Have you guys seen A Beautiful Mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another great movie.
Oh, okay. Hey, look at that. We saw
Were you like expecting
to know if you have something in common with us there? Is that it?
You mentioned like a thriller / like mind effing movie.
Yeah.
So that was the one I thought of. Yeah.
I thought you I feel like you were trying to like throw us off. Like, hey,
this is getting out of shit.
I feel like you were trying to throw us off. Like, hey, have you guys heard of this movie? And it won an Academy Award for best movie. All right. Anyway, guys, thanks if you're watching still. Thanks for sticking around. We appreciate it. Episode 20, guys, is in the books. We've been here for 20 episodes. Congratulations. Thank you for being here every step of the way. All right. So I need everyone to like, share, comment. So this week, here's what I want you to do. I want you to comment with your rankings with where Bradford lies in the NFL. Amongst other quarterbacks. You don't have to give us all the quarterbacks. You can just stop at Bradford, kind of like we did. And then I want to know your Desert Island movies, so we can either give you props for them or make fun of you for them in the comments. So anyway, guys, appreciate it. Check out those Amazon links. Buy some shirts. Share with your friends, and we will see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Bye.